Welcome to Transforming Medical Communications, a podcast by MedComms experts. We share medical communications insights and advice from the best and brightest in the industry to find out what they're doing to push our industry forward. Here's your host, Wesley Portegies.
Welcome to the Transforming Medical Communications podcast. I'm your host, Wesley Portegies, and today I'm really thrilled to have Nazan Artun with us. So Nazan brings a wealth of experience in medical affairs, healthcare, and clinical research. She holds a PhD in biotechnology, a Master's of Science, and also a Massachusetts pharmacist license. Her journey from Ankara, Turkey to Boston, US highlights her dedication and adaptability. So before joining Takeda in 2021, Nazan contributed significantly at Harvard-affiliated institutions and also at a nationwide home infusion company. At Takeda, she has introduced innovative digital scientific content strategies and transformed the handling of scientific competitor materials. Currently, she is an associate director of U.S. medical communications and training at Takeda, but she's also a healthcare leadership coach at the University of Tennessee Haslam Business School. Nazan is recognized among Boston's top 15 coaches by Influence Digest Media and also contributes to the Medical Affairs Professional Society and prestigious business journals such as Fast Company and Thrive Global. Nazan, welcome to the show, and that is quite an impressive background.
Thank you so much, Wesley. Thanks for summarizing it, and I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Absolutely, same here. Why don't we first dive a little bit into some background here? I would love to learn a little bit more about the highlights of your career and more specifically, what were some learnings that you had along the way?
Yeah, I think if I define myself in a couple of words, I'm just going to pick one actually. It was just adaptability is one of the strengths that I developed in time. As you can see or read from my background, that I have been in different, organizations, different countries. And also I had to invent myself multiple times. And also one of the highlights of my career is I'm exposed to different fields, not just, medical affairs or healthcare. As you know, coaching is one of the fields that I'm actively serving. And also I'm a musician, maybe not actively performing due to personal reasons, but I've been a professional musician since 2001. And all these things I think, brings kind of a wealth of experience that kind of helps me to bring creativity, adaptability, and also improvisation, and also seeing things in a higher perspective and looking things in a wider perspective.
I was kind of wondering about, you kind of both have an artistic background and you have your leadership coaching practice. Mm-hmm. How has this influenced your work in medical communications?
Well, yes, not maybe only medical communications. These have been influencing my work life since the beginning. But I can tell that being a musician requires a lot of skills. For example, being at the stage requires courage, as you can imagine, and also presentation skills, but also, again, handling the unexpected situations, which brings, again, skills of problem solving and leadership and improvisation. And as a musician also, the style that currently I'm interested in is more like a world jazz rock combination, like a fusion, which again requires improvisation skills. I think those are, again, those skills that I believe that I bring to the professional work environment, environments that I'm working, most recently medical communication. And coaching is something that happened naturally, which I'm happy to elaborate in the future moments. But I think coaching also, doing it from a professional place, brings me the capability to also create stronger relationships and listening people, understanding their nature, creating space for them, and elevating them, and just kind of working more collaboratively. And also, again, solving problems, because we are all human. Trying to exist in work environments, we are all good in our nature. It's just sometimes things can get tough, but coaching is, I think, kind of helps me to remind myself that we're all human, remind our human nature, and still stay in the human-centered side, not just leaning too much to the business-centered side.
Over the past few weeks, knowing, leading up to today's recording, I was kind of thinking through about some conversations we had in the past, right? And something that really intrigued me was the notion of creativity. And when I look at specifically the medical communications industry or medical communications professionals in pharma, I feel there's a lot of creativity required currently, right? And when I say creativity, I don't just mean things like graphic design. That is definitely also a creative thing, but it could be even creativity to come up with, let's say, an innovative solution that is accepted by compliance, right? For that, you might need a lot of creativity once in a while. So I was kind of wondering, with your artistic and coaching background, when you look at the kind of individuals that work in medcoms, in pharma, what kind of ideas do you have around how organizations could hire people that bring this creativity to the table, while of course rooted in accurate science?
Yeah, such a great question, and that's a topic that I've been advocating for and pondering upon for a long time and sharing this with many. I think I want to take some time to just approach things from two perspectives. First of all, why do we need creativity, right? Because there are some buzzwords that people like to throw out, and just innovation, digital innovation, creativity, adaptability, so on and so forth. But why do we need creativity? And is creativity a skill that is kind of blessed to only a specific population, or can everyone have access to that creativity? But please keep me accountable to touch upon the diverse people needs to be hired in medcoms too, because I think this is related to that, and the necessity will be translated to that conversation too. So creativity, I think it is based on survival in a way, because when there are problems, then you need to come up with solutions, right? That's how I usually see creativity. And problem solving, finding ways to solve problems is basically, it's just being creative. As you said, it's not about using arts and aesthetics and music. Yes, definitely they're influencing and just helping maybe just to make us more adaptable to the creative thinking. But problem solving is, I think, it is the basis of why we need creativity and why creativity is needed in human world and business world. Innovation, you're right. Because innovation, what does that mean? Just bring something new, right? Improving things. So that's why to be able to do that, you need creativity and productivity. Again, making things work better. And then we need creative thinking. And as I mentioned, adaptability. I mean, when I was transitioning to US, I cannot even start, there were too many times that I had to use my creative muscle to be able to survive from things, processes, or train myself quicker to adapt myself to the environment. And also creativity is needed for necessity of growth. It's, again, based on human nature. As human, we are prone to grow. It's our need, one of our basic needs. So all these things are, whatever is a human need, I think translates into business needs. So all these needs are needed in a business environment, work environment. Going back to why we need to hire diverse people in medcoms. So when I started working in medcoms, I didn't have a full experience, even though I had experience in med affairs, but not fully experienced in medcoms. And I can say that medcoms is such a specific, special function in medical affairs. It sits in the middle of everything and just work cross-functionally and just kind of use the capability of scientific expertise blended with creativity. That's how I see it. And then creates, again, ideas and solutions to communicate scientific data and information. But to be able to do that, again, creativity comes with exposure to different experiences, right, Wesley? And also our experiences are, I think, improving our nervous system just to be able to react and answer, be ready to different situations. That's what I've been telling, like being at the stage, being a band leader, a composer. So all these experiences are, I think, wiring our brain in a way that we are able to see things from a different perspective. That's how I experienced my transition to MedComs. But there's one thing I think sometimes, so understanding that a new experience needs also technical learnings and also onboarding and training. At this moment, I remember talking with a leader in the field, and she was mentioning that how she chooses her hiring patterns, like based on, okay, what is my need? Do I need someone that is like fully experienced in MedComs, med training, whatever it is, medical strategy, or do I need someone who has a great potential, but I can invest maybe a couple of months to just train them technically and then use their like great potential that will be kind of a flow into the work. So that's why exposure to different diverse work areas, I think, is a kind of a strength in the long term. So that's how leaders should think about it. Sometimes giving decisions based on urgent needs are maybe helping us for the short term, but for the long-term planning, I think it's not a good investment in talent management.
I liked that you mentioned problem solving, because that was exactly part of the creativity I was talking about. And I'm kind of wondering, and this is like a bigger question, in medical communications, what do you see are the biggest problems that need to be solved? Or maybe through a more positive lens, what are the opportunities that we have that people with this kind of creative mindset could hopefully tackle?
Great question. I think I like your idea of reframing it more to like opportunities that are waiting for us to just kind of experience. So one thing that I can say is, again, I will try to be as specific as for MedComs, but I feel like these are applicable to the other areas if you want to take these as examples. For example, what I have experienced is there are really time-sensitive projects, or the calendars can be sometimes really pressing. And in terms of matching the timelines and delivering and communicating things on time and readouts and everything, or Congress planning is a big part of it, and creativity actually blooms in Congress planning. I can see that, and so I think just being a good time manager, but also creating space for the team, for each other, just to use some of the time to, wander, even just do nothing. And something that I always wanted to mention, Wesley, creativity is, again, it exists in a higher level of thinking, meaning you should not be in the, stress, anxiety level. You cannot function from that level. So to be able to create, you cannot be in a survivor mode. So that's one of the things that I'm seeing, even I'm experiencing too, when you are in always on the go, and always trying to match the deadlines, not creating space for actually, let me just step back. Let me just think through this. And sometimes within teams, we create these pressures on us from top to bottom, So in MedComs, I would say that dedicating specific times for these conversations, it doesn't have to be even conversations. It can be just one person, just personally, you taking time to do that. That's sometimes, most of the time, actually, that's what I do. I share with my manager saying that, hey, I have this problematic project content, and I'm not happy about it. And I cannot share this with people. I cannot distribute it. I need to put my hands on it. And to be able to do that, I need to think about it, and I need some time. And now I think the more they're knowing me, they understand what I'm talking about, meaning literally just turning into a more joyful experience, just opening, having my coffee, going through, it's not like, okay, what am I going to do? Like, oh, I need to deliver this. There's like a time crunch on that. No, it's just really calming and turning into shifting the experience in a way. And then that always helped me to come up with like, creative ideas and finding solutions to the problematic situations. One thing that I can share that. And also sometimes data is really important of course, in med affairs and medical communications. What we want to communicate, scientific accuracy, again, is really important. I think it's maybe if you need to prioritize, I would prioritize the accuracy. Obviously, we cannot just communicate something false. But at the same time, science is based on creativity as well, Wesley. So actually, just thinking that, I'm just going to focus on science, not to creativity, is I think it's a delusion, being delusional. Let's just walk hand in hand. Again, not defining creativity as something like, so nice, aesthetic. It's not, creativity is not that. It's just creativity has a bigger impact on everything. And just coming from that place is really important. Another thing that I experienced in MedComs is something in training too. Right now, I'm also kind of doing training projects. There's some sort of inheritance of habits coming from the previous leaders or the previous culture or way of doing things. And sometimes I think we lean towards to keep them going in the same way. And because it's in our comfort zone, right? And that's one of the things when I talked about being courageous, right? So creativity actually asks you to get out of your comfort zone. So to be able to do that, you need to be courageous enough to say that, okay, I see that I don't want to do this way anymore. I want to, create some changes and innovation. That's, I think, the approach also, just being aware that, hey, am I becoming like a walking dead, not questioning anything, just passing things and just kind of doing the same thing over and over again, how it has been done, then I will continue to do it the same way? Or am I really just taking a critical look and putting my stamp on it? That's another thing that I think see as again, opportunity for people to think.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There was something you said that kind of triggered something in me. And it was about, you said something like, if you want to be creative, you cannot be in survivor mode or to be too stressed. And an interesting observation that I've made over the last almost 12 years now that I ran MedComs Experts, my agency, is that, typically the kind of clients that we get are clients that are looking for innovation because that's what we're known for. But then when the launch date starts approaching, it becomes harder and harder to kind of, be very creative and innovate. And and I think that has a lot to do with what you just said, because we can just feel the tension in the room sometimes. And it's not really tension between us and our client. It is our clients being under extreme stress because there's an impending launch. They're all under pressure to make it a success. And then it becomes harder and harder to experiment, which I think is a critical part of being creative, right? Experimenting, trying new things without really knowing whether it actually is going to work.
Yes.
The risk that other people might not agree or are misaligned on a concept. The risk that maybe, you try something new in way of communications that, is not as effective as we all hoped for. Which is all part of learning and all part of being creative and all part of finding better ways to do things.
Yeah.
So, internally, we often, take this into account. It's like, well, listen, the launch is coming up.
Yeah.
We need to kind of be very compassionate here and understand our clients are under a huge amount of pressure. So, let's be gentle when we ask for when the feedback is finally coming and, let's try to, be understanding when we propose some new kind of things and there's maybe not that much appetite. So it's really interesting because it's very visible.
Yeah. And also if we talk about the barriers in front of creativity in pharma world and medical affairs, as I said, getting out of our comfort zone is one of those, but also I think time constraints is another one that is I don't have the clear solutions for this. I mean, I can suggest some tools, but I'm also going through the same experience. But at least being aware of this, challenges, I think is a part of being a part of the solution. And another one is, I'm going to call it micromanaging in a way, Wesley. Creativity is like, this is my perspective. This is how I think. It's like a blank canvas, okay? So if you say that, okay, I have this issue, I want to solve this thing, I want to transform our strategy for this type of content, so on and so forth, or communication channel. It's a blank canvas, and sometimes you kind of get clarity throughout the way. That's how it works. I always go back to my experience as a musician too. When I have, not to brag about myself, I have songwriting awards nationally that I it was kind of a sign for me that I actually can be more courageous in my creativity and sharing my ideas with others. That's something that I wanted to quickly share related to, again, getting out of comfort zone, because we're scared, right? To share our ideas. Maybe people will dump our ideas and they think that, this wouldn't work. So again, blank canvas, when you write a song, it's just sometimes you come with a chord, even you come with a chorus or you come with a verse, you come with a melody idea, and then you kind of improve it. And then when you have a structure, then when I play with my band, everyone put their own contribution to it. And then when you go to the recording, it changes again with the production too. And when you play on live, then because it's live, you do something different and you're like, oh yeah, I like that one too. So it's there are so many layers actually to define something that you create from scratch. I think it's the same idea. So that's why when people or leaders are trying to micromanage the process, that kind of, I think, kills the creativity also. Trust is so important. Of course, you need to be informed. You have to just keep them in the loop, or create a collaborative, environment. But if someone knows what to do from process 1% to 100%, all clear, I'm not sure if it's called creativity or maybe they're genius. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't seen it in my life yet. It's a process again. So another thing that I wanted to mention related to this thing that you again mentioned about the stress and now the constraints of collaboration is sometimes, not sometimes, majority of the times, budget is a constraint too, because you need resources. And it's understandable, honestly. At that point, I think I understand both sides. I understand both the agencies and then the in-house teams and everyone. It's just maybe depends on having conversations and just kind of creating at least clarity about what you don't know. And then so you set the tone at the beginning so everyone is on board, knowing that, okay, we're going for a journey. We know this part, but we don't know that part. So we're going to learn, but we're not going to harm each other. We're going to do our best, at least kind of setting the intentions before jumping into a journey like that. I think it's really important.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because, of course, I'm having these conversations at a daily basis. And what I really like is the notion, and I think that comes with creativity. With creativity comes collaboration, right? And sometimes it's almost like the typical process, the traditional collaboration process between agencies and pharma companies is kind of rigged a little bit, not in anyone's favor, to be honest, in no one's favor. And what I mean by that is that there is this kind of typical song and dance, right, where it's the client may not really want to be fully transparent because they might not trust vendor or agency to kind of trying to have their best interest at heart. And then at the same time, the agency is going to do a guessing game because they don't really know what the boundaries and expectations are. And it's a very suboptimal way of thinking. And what I often tell our clients in that situation is well, can we imagine for 10 minutes that we're working for the same company, right? We're just colleagues. We're sitting in a meeting room and we're making a plan. Let's not think too much about, all the business considerations here. Let's just see how could we creatively. So we have a certain budget, we have an objective. How do we get to that objective as quickly and effectively and safely possible? And I really enjoy those conversations, and I like changing that kind of dynamic because suddenly you're going to feel you're all at the same side of the counter. It's very productive.
Yeah.
And I am always advocating for that approach because I think if you generally, most people can actually be trusted. Most people, most companies can generally be trusted. And especially when you did an effort to select one to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just like with any other relationship where you kind of need to invest your trust in the beginning of your relationship because you will need to experience how it's going to work out.
Yeah. Trust is at the core of all personal professional relationships. And I have an article that I published in Fast Company. I'm pretty sure that you read it. But it's one of the, again, pieces that I'm very proud of. And I think, as I mentioned there, first, we need to start with asking, what does trust mean to you? And what do you want to see in others that you can also project? And in creativity, trust is really, it's a must. And also, having open conversations. One instance that happened recently that I would like to share with you, something, again, related to this topic. I inherited a project that one of my team members were actually handling, and it was like the mid-project that I had to take over. And I felt like I need to do something about it, but it was already budget spent and, all these complications, right? So what I did was I actually called the agency and I said that, let's sit. If we distribute this way, it's going to be bad for me, for you guys, everything. Because every work that we do is a kind of a signature of who we are and how we do things, right? And I said that, okay, I understand that there's a budget that is spent, but I'm wondering, I cannot just continue like this, and I'm wondering what you'd like to do about it. And they agreed, actually, Wesley, that the work that has been done so far it needs some different perspective or approach. And then after that point, we worked so harmoniously. And then what we distributed was very much appreciated and praised by, again, the users, even though I feel like I did the half of the things that I could have done or with the agency, because we took it from the middle, and still I wanted to be respectful with you cannot say that, okay, with this budget, I'm going to create everything from scratch. So you still need to know your boundaries, right? So what is, it depends on the conversations. What is it that you can compromise? Like if you give me one hand and I'll give you my other hand type of. So I think even though budget is a constraint, unfortunately, and it's the same in musician world too, you want to have the best productions, you want to have the best equipment, you want to have the, you want to perform the best venues and everything. Budget is always kind of some sort of a limitation in different environments. But I think, again, just focusing on the human side and trust and making clear intentions, and also making clear that you want to create something that is kind of appreciated and used by the end users, because that's we are trying to serve, right? It's not like we are trying to create materials that no one wants to use. So it has to serve to the purpose that we're starting from the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that was a beautiful example of how I think trust is often being built, because it all comes down to deep inside, ultimately knowing that you all have the same objective, even though there might be some barriers to be overcome, including budget and timelines and other things. And I think that's a beautiful example.
Thank you.
Nazan, imagine that we have people listening here that are leading teams in medical communications. And imagine you could give them one tip, one thing they could immediately implement to drive innovative thinking and creativity in their teams.
I need some space right now because I feel like I have too many. I want to pick one, the most important. I'm going to stick to the one that I gave as an example in the beginning. I was talking with one of my leaders a couple of weeks ago, and I mentioned about this, again, notion of doing nothing. And Wesley, this is so funny. I need to mention this. I have a very close friend. She's Dutch, and she's a great coach. I learned the notion of coaching from her. She's been coaching, I think, for 25 years or even more. And then one day she called me, and so we were having a virtual call, and it was a weekend, and I was like relaxing, in my opinion, just reading into things. And then she told me that whenever I call you, you are always doing something. And you know how honest, like direct Dutch people. And
I do know.
You do,
very close experience.
Yeah. And she said, and I was like, what do you mean? I'm like relaxing. No, you're not. You're always doing something. Why don't you try to do nothing? That was like a big punch in the face. And then I was reading like some of the articles, and I saw this news, and what is happening in South Korea is I think they're organizing a festival called Do Nothing Day. Yeah, which is like people are actually bringing their mats and everything, just sitting in the like field and doing nothing for a couple of days, because South Korea is, I think, is acknowledged by the, always work, hard conditions, and like, and also high standards of people for each other. And then I was mentioning this to one of our leaders. I was saying that we were having this conversation about the creativity. And I said that, what impacts creativity is actually doing nothing, because our mind is constantly wandering. So you really you kind of remove the distractions. Like even if I read a book for relaxing, actually, I'm just focusing on the book, right? So when you do nothing, you just kind of remove the distractions, and then it opens a whole space for your mind, and then all the creative thoughts and like ideas are blooming. Going back to your question, I am not saying that create do nothing days. I think still it should be kind of tracked. I mean, I'm saying it, but I don't think
it's unlikely to happen in our industry, right?
But I think really encouraging people in measuring it, Wesley, because I know that companies are like always setting these goals, like, health and wellness goals, and like, this goal and that goal, just kind of really try to better the work environment for people, which is great. But I don't think that they're measuring the outcome clearly. That's why if you set the health and wellness goal, okay, how are you going to measure it? What is again, like you can put the goal there, but how are you going to measure if people are actually doing it? It's the same for creativity, like encouraging, but clearly setting the goal and clearly measuring the outcomes. And that would be my suggestion to the leaders.
I like that. And it made me think about a case from my MBA. It's long ago. But I remember we had this case where they listed companies that came up with like really, really world-changing inventions. And with all these, so one example would be like Post-it notes, right? So Post-it notes were invented by 3M. And they were invented during a time where I think they said like 10% of your time or like half a day a week or something, you can do whatever you want, like, just be here and play around, like do whatever you want. It doesn't have to be like super productive. And someone was kind of playing around with, I think, some kind of glue. I don't know. I'm filling this part in a little bit by imagination. But they invented the Post-it notes. And there's actually like a ton of examples of companies that provided their teams, some off time. And during those times, it was often where the most, like impressive inventions were found. And of course, like a Post-it note might not sound like an imaginative like invention, but actually it is, right? Like everyone in the world knows what it is. It's a big deal. And and I found it really, really interesting. There was another. I'm not sure which company it was. It was a pizza delivery company. Might have been Domino's or something. And I think they gave every delivery person like a budget to satisfy clients that would have some kind of complaint. So it might have been like a $10 budget or something. They could do whatever they wanted. Just say, if you get a complaint, solve it. Here's $10. Like, good luck. And it was like a huge success as well. They had the highest customer satisfaction of all. So I do agree with you that like giving freedom within certain boundaries is very powerful and a very powerful concept. And I think we need to find better ways, both on the industry and the agency side, to leverage that?
I was planning to make a joke, but I'm not sure. Like Newton discovered gravity when taking a nap. So, I mean, the gravity already existed, but he became aware of it. So,
I like that. Yeah. So I really like what you said. I think that's a great tip. Like somehow find some ways within healthy boundaries for your teams to feel more free and playful for at least some time.
Yeah. And also another thing to follow up, maybe more structure if they don't like this idea. I have another solution that they can use. Exposure to different experiences. I think when we are siloing the responsibilities and team members into always the same type of a routine day-to-day responsibilities, I believe that it kills creativity in the long term too. So investing in people's exposure to become more diverse. It doesn't have to be related to medcoms, Wesley. That's what I'm talking about. Because everyone thinks that, okay, to be able to be more creative in medcoms, I need to go to medcoms creativity training. Not at all. Because because I think our mind is making the connections when it's in a high level of creativity. I've read an article about this a while ago. That's why, as far as I remember, I don't remember all details, but when our mind is good with connecting actually irrelevant experiences, and when those irrelevant experiences come as one, those are the innovative solutions that we kind of present, which I did in one of my projects. Again, at work, I was using a technique when I was getting licensed in Massachusetts as a pharmacist. I was just studying for myself, using index cards to study. And so it's that was one of my, this experience, nothing relevant to anything that I was doing, but still an experience from a different area of the field can be translated into my current work and just kind of solve a problem.
How do you expect medical communications professionals to evolve over the next few years? And the reason I'm not asking how you expect medical communications to evolve is because everyone is going to answer with ChatGPT and AI so on. And I've heard enough of that. So it's I was looking, and since you're a leadership coach, I thought you could comment more on the people and the role rather than medcoms itself.
Well, that's the thing. For example, I envision medical communications to be a more strategic partners. Currently, what I'm experiencing is more like a content developers, but I don't want to talk about this honestly because I feel like it's gonna what are you talking about? So that's I feel like I want to find.
Are you afraid people don't agree with that? Because I think you're right, and I don't think it's a problem.
Well, that's a very difficult question, and I think it takes time to really just step back, maybe do nothing to be able to answer that question. First of all. One thing that I can say is, as I mentioned, medical communication has a very critical role in medical affairs because of, again, just opportunities to collaborate and also turning ideas and strategies into reality from that perspective. So what I would say humbly, I would advise to medical communication professionals out there just to trust themselves and their capabilities, and also approaching all the projects from outside of the box of perspective. And as I again mentioned, not being in the comfort zone, but just, looking for development and improvement opportunities, not in an, again, malign way. I want to highlight this because I felt like I'm not mentioning about being competitive, because the competition is a different part that needs to be talked about. It's your personal goals and how you can actually approach things from a different perspective and how you can contribute to the team goals and to the, outcome as a whole. And just owning their own worth and knowing and owning their own, educational background, because I know that you have to have a lot of years of education to be able to become a medical communications profession. That's what I would say.
Well, Nazan, thank you so much for sharing all your insights today. I am sure a lot of people are going to benefit from this. And Well, we'll leave your details in the speaker notes on the podcast channel, so people could reach out to you if they like to. Thank you so much for being here today. I really enjoyed our discussion.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity, Wesley. This was a great conversation.
Transforming Medical Communications is brought to you by MedCom's experts. To find out more about MedCom's experts and how we create some of the most cutting-edge medical communications programs anywhere in the world, visit www.medcoms-experts.com. And then make sure to search for Transforming Medical Communications in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at MedCom's experts, thanks for listening.